How's everybody today? Good? I apologize in advance. I'm on the tail end of a cold. So if I lose my voice, I will revert to interpretive dance. Talk about poverty. I should be fine. Thank you so much for the invitation to come back. I enjoyed the conversation last time, and it was at a critical point where we were engaging in a lot of conversation around the community, around this issue and getting feedback, and I appreciate the good questions, the pushes, the thoughts from this group, and I welcome them again because I'll cut to the chase. We don't have it figured out yet. It's complex, as you well know, and we have learned a lot over the last year, and we have a direction forward that I'll share with you, but it's going to be a never-ending process of engaging, learning, pivoting, and acting as we go. So I'm happy to share with you what has happened to date and what's coming up next, but please share your thoughts, your insights, and your ideas for what this should look like going forward. I welcome them. So I'd like to do a couple of things. I'll do a very, very quick recap for those that are familiar with what is the Child Poverty Collaborative. I'll do a quick overview of that. I'll share with you then 5 kind of key learnings that we have learned over the last year from a lot of research and a lot of community conversation. Try to distill a lot of complex information down to 5 key points. And then I'll share another 5 key next steps. And the action plan that we've laid out, the direction, the commitments that we've made, that we're now working on acting upon, operationalizing going forward. So that is what I hope to do, and please jump in throughout, ask questions, add your own ideas as well. So as some of you may know, the Child Poverty Collaborative was convened a little over a year ago. It was the end of 2015, and it was a culmination of a couple different things. One, the state of Black Cincinnati, and I'll come back to that in a minute. State of Black Cincinnati came out earlier that year and really called the community question again on why is it that after 20 years, as they did the previous state of Black Cincinnati, why is it that the gaps are the same, if not wider, across every single dimension, every single indicator between white and Black Cincinnati. So that really, I think, gave rise, call to action for a lot of us to think things have got to change. We have to do things differently. Similarly, from United Way standpoint, many of you know we're focused on these big, bold goals: education, income, and health, making some progress, but in many ways too incremental, and really a growing recognition that poverty cuts across. And despite progress on more kids getting ready for kindergarten, graduation, high school graduation continuing to increase, employment coming back to pre-recession levels, despite all of that, poverty remains stubbornly high. And our own recognition that we need to think differently and think about changing how we do things. So that came together. The mayor, too, was thinking about how do we take what he did with the Hand Up initiative, which got more money to effective job training programs. He was really thinking about what more can we do as a city. How does he use his position to really champion taking on this issue in a much more explicit way. And then finally, the business community was starting to really understand that this is tragic for our city. And not only because it's morally unacceptable for half of our kids in our city to be growing up in poverty, but it's not good for our community. It's not good for business. It's not good for our community. It's not the kind of community we want to be when so much is going so well, so much positive momentum, rebirth, regrowth, revitalization, yet so many are denied opportunity. So a lot of recognition, and my point is, from a lot of different sectors saying that we need to think differently, we need to come together to take on this issue in a different way. Not knowing what the solution is, but saying that recognition that we got to come together. That's what the Child Poverty Collaborative was really intended to be. A cross-sector effort on community leaders, faith leaders, government leaders, business leaders, philanthropic leaders, nonprofit leaders, advocates, coming together to say, how do we change this trajectory for our city? And that's what the collaborative is. We have a lot of folks involved. I don't want to go through all the specifics, but we have a steering committee now, about 50 people from all different sectors, all walks of life. And the task that we set for ourselves about a year ago was to build a community-driven action plan based on, one, and importantly, starting with listening to the community, especially the experts, those experiencing it, or working directly with those who are working on the front lines, working with families of poverty. Let's listen to the community. And far too often these kind of commissions and task forces come together, commission research, but don't actually listen or engage the community. We wanted this to be different. So we committed early on to having a lot of community conversations. So hopefully some of you were in those. We had over 80 community conversations last year with people from all walks of life, but primarily focused on people themselves who are or have experienced poverty, to really learn directly from them as to what the challenges are and what should be done. So we learned a tremendous amount. I'll recap briefly some of the themes from all those community conversations. We also convened 2 major summits. Anybody at either of those summits? Yeah. Oh, good. So we had 2 major summits, each with 700 people. Really good dialogue, discussion. People were literally from all walks of life in those rooms, having some hard conversations about these issues. That was really that community engagement work was really the key driver that helped us better understand and formulate our strategy. We also did research. We learned a lot. We pulled a lot from the State of Black Cincinnati report. I'll share some of that in a minute. And we had Rand Corporation do some research as well. So it was kind of pulling together what we could learn, what the insights we could learn from research, plus what we've heard directly from the community, to come up with a go-forward strategy. And that we laid out near the end of last year, directionally at the last summit back in October, and now that we're working on acting on, operationalizing, and moving forward. So that's been what's happened. Let me share with you now the 5, if I had to distill them down, the 5 kind of key insights or learnings over the last year from the community and from the research, and then I'll hit on the 5 next steps, the 5 commitments that the collaborative has made. So first and most important, I think, and many of you this is not a new learning, but it was for a lot in the community, that this issue is widespread, that family poverty is very widespread, and it's important how you define it. And we've, with the collaborative, really wrestled with how do we understand the issue, because the official definition of poverty is woefully inadequate for really capturing what it takes for a family to make ends meet. And many of you know this official definition of poverty for a family of 4 is $24,000 a year. So by definition, a family of 4 making $25,000 a year is out of poverty. I mean, it's laughable. The standard was set back in the 60s on a very arcane measure, yet so much is still dependent on this metric. So we are really reframing to think about self-sufficiency. What does it take for a family to make basic ends meet? And by a lot of measures, that's about double, if not a little bit more, double the official poverty rate. So to give you a sense of that, for a family of 4, that's about $48,000, $50,000 a year to meet basic needs. Again, just the basics: housing, transportation, utilities, not saving for college or handling a medical emergency or a car breaking down, but just meeting the basics. So by defining poverty under that measure of self-sufficiency, it's even more widespread than the official poverty measures would indicate.
Do you have
across the entire region. But
do you have some figures from Hamilton County using those?
I sure do. Thanks for that. So let me start on the regional level, the whole tri-state region, because some might think this is just an issue in the city, or Hamilton County. It's not. So across the entire tri-state region, by that measure, nearly a third of our entire population, 600,000 people, are not self-sufficient. It's about 30%. And that's across our entire region, all the suburbs, tri-state region, nearly a third struggle to make basic ends meet, right? So for Hamilton County, that number is 50%. So half of the population of Hamilton County is not self-sufficient. For the city of Cincinnati, it's 70%. So think about that for a minute. And I think what makes that so devastating and powerful is the recognition that then it's the common experience for a child born in our community to grow up in a family that can't meet basic ends meet. The majority of instances, the majority of kids, the chances are that you're born into a family that can't meet basic needs. So that, I think, again, it might be news to some. For a lot of the folks involved in the collaborative, it was a shocking kind of realization that, I mean, we all saw the headlines a couple years ago when the city of Cincinnati hit second worst in the country for child poverty. Nearly over half of our kids born into official poverty, below 100%. But when you really think about what it takes for a family to make ends meet, it's much more dramatic, 70%. And that is really devastating. And I think even more critical that we stay focused on this issue. So that's the first key learning of how widespread and unfortunately common poverty is in our community. The second, and unfortunately this was news to a lot, the majority of people in poverty are working. Right? And that's unfortunately still, there's a lot of myths around poverty, and this is a reality that, again, like I said before, our unemployment rate is at record lows. It's at pre-recession levels, 4 or 5%, record low employment rate. More and more people are working, yet poverty hasn't budged. Right? People are working and working and working, but they're not making ends meet. So just to give you a specific statistic, for the children in poverty in the city of Cincinnati, the majority, 60%, have a parent who's working. In official poverty, that's below the 100% threshold, 24,000 for a family of 4, have a parent that's working, right? They're not making enough. I mean, it's simple, it's math. They're working hard, they're working multiple jobs, they're working part-time jobs, they're not getting benefits. But they're working, so it's not simply about why aren't they just working, because they are working. So I think that helped a lot of people understand the real challenge that we're facing, because it's not just about helping people get the jobs. The other reality of it is that, again, recall that I said that the self-sufficiency measure for a family of 4 is about $50,000. What would you guess, how many of our jobs of our region pay at that rate? Anybody? Pay $50,000 or more. What percentage of jobs? Anybody want to?
30%.
How many?
30.
Really close, so 28%. So 72% of all jobs pay less than that. And the majority of children that are in poverty are in typically a single female-headed household, right? On one income, right? Majority of jobs simply don't pay enough to help that family get by. So that's a huge economic structural challenge that we have to deal with, right? And a lot of debate as to how to deal with that. Raise wages, expand better jobs, expand training, a lot of debate as to how to address that, but that is an economic reality that we have to wrestle with because the labor market has fundamentally changed. We lost a lot of middle-skill, middle-wage jobs that simply aren't going to come back, or they're going to look a lot different. And we have to deal with that reality that the path out of poverty looks a lot different than it did in decades before. And it is obviously about jobs, but it's got to be about good jobs. Third, a key insight, and this is not news to a lot of people, but I think important that we keep focused on it,